go to the Heal Project YouTube. The video is streaming live. All right, so maybe give folks another 2 minutes to join in. Just say hi, and I hope you all are having a okay time these days. You have enough toilet paper.
Aredvi, I think that if folks are using their cell phones, I know that some people would have to swipe in order to get gallery view. And if they're using their computers or their tabs, and maybe then they can look up to the top right and click on gallery view. But if they're on their phone, they're going to have to swipe in order to get the gallery view to see all of us, all four of us on the screen.
Yes, thank you. All right. Well, hello everyone who's here. My name is Aredvi from the Heal Project. And today, Ignacio, founder and director of the Heal Project, and I will be doing the second part of our very exciting webinar series on no touching, cyber fucking while distancing. So today's topic is from love letters to digital smile. I'm very excited about this.
Me too. Me too.
Would you like to introduce our interpreters, Ignacio?
Yeah, today we have Rodney and we have Felice with us. As we had last week, they're going to be with us the entire series. We are so grateful to them.
And we decided after last time that we were gonna extend the session just a little bit so we can have a longer conversation and also have more time for Q&A at the end. And also, if you're on YouTube, please use the chat on the side to send your questions. I can see your questions this time, so we can read them. I also want to encourage you, if you haven't already, please sign up to our newsletter. Go to our website. It's heal2end.org. Heal, HEAL, number 2, END.org. And go to our Instagram and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Hit that bell if you're on our YouTube channel so that we can stay connected with you. And again, thank you for people who already donated to the Heal Project. If you haven't already and you're able to, we would really appreciate. We're asking for $20 a session for the webinars. But anything you're able to give, we would be really appreciative.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you. We were able to give a beautiful resource package at the end of our first session. Thank you, Aredvi. And we are going to have a really nice one at the end of this one, this conversation. If anyone has any additional resources they want to add to this plump resource package, please let us know and we can add to it already. Yeah, we want to just be giving people a lot of things to be looking at and pass along with each other as we continue to have more conversations about how we are connecting while we're in, quarantine.
Yeah, and this session will be recorded. For now, you can see, and previous session also is in our YouTube channel in case you missed it. But there will be a better quality recording released later too, and updated resource packages. So stay tuned. All right.
All right, so we want to be getting into our conversation of from love letters to smut, right? And so I always like to start off with, words, the meaning of words. So we're thinking about, of course, the word love, and love is such a huge word. It has many, many meanings, and it is very, very subjective. And so what do we think of when we think of love? We can ask everyone this question, and it has many, many different meanings. And so we looked up the word, of course, And we have a little definition here. The noun, an intense feeling of deep affection, a great interest and pleasure in something. We were surprised that it incorporated pleasure. Verb, feel a deep romantic or sexual attachment to someone. Right. And so we were thinking about, Redvi, you mentioned about love as attachment, how the meaning changes over time. And I know you wanted to talk about that, but I definitely wanted to talk about this idea of love as this bigger concept, and then how we're thinking about love in particular um, now, and how it might have shifted. And I'm thinking about it too historically, like even thinking about this letter writing, love letters, and how we used to express. Uh, should I
Yeah.
start with the letter writing or?
Yeah, well, I think we can, like I was telling you, we can really do a lot of sessions on just the word love, right? It's
Yeah,
perhaps the most expressed word in every
yeah.
culture and history on so many levels. But what I really liked about bringing love letters to digital smut and putting love and smut next to each other
Hmm.
is that notion of how we understand love as this um, like pleasure, safe, beautiful,
Right.
good part of life, all the way, and also feminine, right?
Hmm.
Love is a very feminine thing. Going to smut, which is dirty and messy and obscene and masculine in a way.
Hmm.
So yeah, I think that's an interesting, maybe one spectrum in and of itself to think about. And in terms of love as attachment, uh, yeah, because again, like love is considered the thing that supposed to be painful, right? If it's not painful,
Mm.
it's not love, which is why I was surprised to see pleasure in the dictionary definition of it. Um, it's like that is not how the culture
Mm.
I grew up in, or I think most cultures teach what love is, which is you could talk about how problematic that is, but also love is if you're not attached to someone,
Hmm.
do you dare call it love? If you can
Yeah.
imagine yourself without that person, is it real love?
That reminds me. I mean, this reminds me of a thought when I was 17 years old and pregnant in a young a pregnancy teen group, and they asked us a question. The counselor asked us a question, going around in a circle and say, "How do you know you're in love?" Right? We're all teenagers, like 14, 15, 16, 17 year olds around, bellies out to here, and they're asking us, "How do you know you're in love?" And when it came to me, I said, "I know I'm in love because I've never taken so much shit from someone." That as a 17-year-old, that's what I thought love was, because I had endured so much in my long life as a 17-year-old. I had endured so much from this person that I was like, this must be love, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, pain, because it was so much pain. Very interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I have a similar story with my very first relationship, where I literally assumed because it was painful, it must have been love. And so, again, we can talk about the danger of how we talk about love
Mhm.
and what it sets us up for
Right,
in a
right.
way. But so today, we want to move a little bit more forward from that and going to the idea of love letters. And I think
Mhm.
that can change what love means, historically speaking, and also why are we talking about that today? Like when we have access to everything, pretty much, right?
Because I've been catastrophizing, that's why. And I've been thinking we are all using Zoom and the internet like crazy. Like, and I'm like, what if the internet just goes down? Like, do we know everybody's address? And do we have the capacity, the ability to actually write to people? And really, like, it is an actual lost art, like writing to people, right? The actual ways that we text, that we tweet, that we even type. is completely different than the way we would write to someone.
Mhm.
We were just talking that in schools right now, they're not teaching children how to write cursive anymore because it's not even necessary. They're not teaching them that. And I was like, oh my goodness, when I think about letter writing, like love letter writing, I think about writing in cursive, and
Mhm.
this is it's just this way that you write. For some people it might be writing in print, but cursive. And so, like, if we didn't have texting or email or any of those things, um, what sort of letter would we write, and whom would we write it to?
Mhm.
Would it be a love letter, or would it be smut? And then we still have that question: is that one and the same? Is that different, right?
Right.
um yes. And I'm thinking about, in the past, letter writing was a form of course it was the form of communication, but it was also the form, uh, also a form of concealment, secrecy, for many, who were writing to each other and could not speak of their love very explicitly, right? Uh, and speak in poetically, or in code, to talk about things. And so I found little snippets of several letters. One from a soldier, in 1940, and then one a literary one from Oscar Wilde to a lover. February 12th. Yeah, wanted to say something.
Well, I wanted to add to what you said
Hmm.
about, how the secrecy of letter writing and
Yes.
historic,
Hmm.
um, value of that, that how it's so many places in the world, that is still very true.
Yes. Yes.
For so many reasons, being queer or being interested in a type of sex that isn't okay, or being in prison, whether you have access to digital means but you can't use it for different reasons, or you just don't have access to digital means, I think letter writing perhaps is lost in the most modern, the most privileged parts of the world.
Yes. Yes.
But really, it's still pretty alive in a lot of places for kind of the outliers
Hmm.
of
Hmm.
the society.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
but yeah, go ahead.
Yes. February 12th, 1940, Park Grange. My own darling boy, there is nothing more than I desire in life but to have you with me constantly. I can see, or I imagine I can see, what your mother and father's reaction would be. The rest of the world have no conception of what our love is. They do not know that it is love. So it's one soldier to another soldier. And then Oscar Wilde to Lord Alfred Douglas. So Oscar Wilde to Lord Alfred Douglas. Oh, my own boy, your sonnet is quite lovely, and it is a marvel that those red rose leaf lips of yours should be made no less for the madness of music and song than for the madness of kissing. Your slim glit soul walks between passion and poetry. I love that little bit. So I love your slim glit soul walks between passion and poetry. So
I'm not a romantic, but if someone wrote me something like that, I might change my mind.
beautiful. I'm totally not a romantic either, but that is so romantical.
It really is a, yeah, it's very intimate. It feels just very soulful.
Yes.
And we will have more examples of love letters and more resources on historic love letters between queer people in our resource package. So be sure to check it out.
So back to the question for me is that question again. I keep thinking of from love letters to smut. Um, I keep thinking, is it a trajectory? Is
Mhm.
it from innocent to evil? Or is it this? Um, is it in the same, on the same spectrum? Because we often see it as this, um, love, monogamy, people who wait to get married, have children, all this, which is good if that's what you want and all that. There's nothing wrong with that. And then there's um, the other side over here. This is the smut. The smut is everything else, uh, anyone who's into kink or poly or, and this is, I'm generalizing very broadly here, but that's what you tend, tend to think about. And so, is that so? Um, and to me, I think that it's all part of the same damn thing. I think because I think love is smutty, and smut can be love. I think it's all there.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, definitely. I think, and again, even within that, how many straight monogamous married people with children do we know who are nasty behind the doors?
yes.
And personally, how many poly, no children, not married people do I know who are so romantic and
Right.
vanilla? Again, all good, but there
Right.
is this, it's interesting how we look at that, the spectrum of love to smut when, and maybe that's why, because when your external world is so normal in a way, making it so dirty inside makes sense. And
Mm-hmm.
when you're otherwise, if you're queer, poly, you already got so many things going for you, just like, like maybe this one piece of my life, I'll leave it be. It's interesting. And but like in terms of how people understand love, I agree with you that like I said, I'm not a romantic. The way I understand love is how well someone understands sexual desire, um, not just in terms of like the external skills or experience of how someone expresses themselves sexually, but how they can connect body to body and how they can use that. Like to me, that's where a lot of love kicks in. I'm talking about like romantic or
Mm-hmm.
very specific, like sexual love or romantic love in a sense. So the more, to me, that's a wonderful expression of love. That's when I know I'm being loved, when someone sees how I respond emotionally,
Mm-hmm.
physically, really sees all of me. And because maybe I'm very smutty and dirty myself, I feel like then that person will see all of that,
Right.
right? And to me, that's loving. To me, that's so loving.
Yeah, that you just hit that right on the head. I think it's true. When someone sees my smuttiness and sees me for what I am, that that's love to me. That when they get that, it's like, thank you for seeing who I really am, and you get me. You get me, right? And so then how does that, to me, it's like, then if we're, well, I ask about that because it's like, I think some people put their like noses up to the smuttiness, right? And it's like, it's the vehicle, right? I say it's the vehicle in which we express the thing, whatever it is, right? Because there's the acceptable, maybe letter writing, maybe that is dignified letter writing, and then there is other things that are more not so private, that are out and open. But I also said before that maybe that has something to do with having some wins and pride, right? Maybe for a person that used to have to be private because of, um, you know, homophobia, decades later, there is, gay pride, and people are talking about things more differently, and, you know, um, texting a dick pic is a little different and quicker, maybe, than a letter, because that's on the same spectrum, saying, hey, baby, I fucking miss you, you know, right? Maybe. Um, but it is sometimes about judgment. It is
Mm.
about judgment, about how we see what's that vehicle, right? Um, that vehicle we use to express that thing, whether it is love, whether we see it as love, or whether we demean it as something else because the vehicle we use is smutty or disgusting,
Right.
right?
And these things are so internalized too, right? Like, I feel like even if you really are not judging smut or, you know, less dignified forms of expression of sexual romantic desire, there is just so much of that internalized that I feel like there's a pressure to want you to maybe, I know I do that. Um, I
Hmm.
take it down a notch. I take my time really getting to know someone, making sure I'm not offending them by my expression of sexual desire.
Hmm.
Uh, Even when it's not about them, I'm not talking about what they're into or what I would do to them or them to me. It's
Right,
about me and what I'm into. But I
right.
feel like just the mere expression of what I like can offend someone else, right? Which is
Mm,
uh, still very internalized, even though I can I can tell myself, but there's nothing wrong with that. But I know I do it. I always I'm taking it down a notch.
mm. Yeah. Interesting. It also, I see it the other way too, when people decide that someone is not into something because of who they are. Like deciding that maybe someone who is a person with a disability is not kinky or smutty or slutty because, right? And that wouldn't even engage with them or even consider bringing up that conversation because of it, right?
Right,
Uh, so disengaging, we're not even starting with a conversation to begin with.
right.
Um, yeah. So on the opposite end of that. Um, but
Yeah,
in thinking about like this, even not even considering whether we believe that it's on this like continuum of this a vehicle, whether we see it as you know evil or good, then how then what is how do we like what's a good way for people to be expressing this thing while in quarantine, if letter writing is something that people want to do in this time right now. um, I think it's something that I want to start doing actually. I've never been a letter writing person. um, like I actually am like, I hate taking out paper and stamps and envelopes. Like I groan about it every time. I'm like, ugh. But I'm actually thinking I want to feel what it feels like to put pen to paper and write to someone and just see it and put some feelings down, just like a free write, like really
yeah.
free write, no editing, and express.
What an
Because
idea. No editing
no
and just
editing.
writing, right? It's and to be having to
Yeah.
um, physically interact with a medium.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I agree with you. I was thinking about how I used to write a lot of letters actually growing up. You know, I didn't have access to a lot of typing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it's really a different part of your brain that's engaged. So when you're trying to express intense feelings, emotions through letter writing, I feel like it engages a part. It's a more raw part of my thoughts because I don't have access to editing. I mean,
Mm.
technically, I could keep writing and scratching it back and go, write another
Mm-hmm.
letter. But assuming it's the very limited editing capacity, I feel like I express very differently. I express in a more intimate, more raw, more genuine way,
Mm.
um, and more of myself comes out in a way. And
Yeah.
also, I think retro stuff is so in right now. You should all try it. It's really,
Millennials.
really, this is the time for if you want to seduce someone properly. Recommend love letters, and then I'll talk a little bit more about love letter accessories. There's just if you're crafty, even if you're not crafty, there is
Mm-hmm.
so many creative things you can do with your love letters. Not only like
Mm.
finding beautiful papers or decorating your love letter with whatever you're into, there is like so much material. You can make an erotic collage and send it as an attachment.
That's nice.
You can do a poetry, find a poetry, just cutouts. Cutouts have different things you can put together.
Mm-hmm.
Um, there's a lot of erotic comics out there. There's a lot of erotic literature. I feel like, again, going from love letter to smut letters, there's like so much resources out there to spice up these letters. And the thought of all of that, actually, I was like, this is really exciting. This is unique and creative. And I like craft. So this gets me really excited, you know?
I like the idea of doing the creating a story together or a poem together where you cut out words or something and have something where you just build on and send it back and forth to each
Uh,
other.
oh,
There's something you're
that sounds really
building
fun. Yeah.
a project together, like something like that. That would be nice. I like
Maybe
that.
like a kinky story or non-kinky,
I
like
mean, of course. I
erotic
mean,
story, right? It's just like, here's where we're gonna go with this. What do you think?
of course, it has to be a kinky story. Come on.
And also, you know what I really, if you have Polaroid cameras at home, use them. I think put a Polaroid picture image in your love letter. Or if you have access to a printer, I'm not really sure how many places are open for printing images. But again, the lost art of photography and actually printing it on
Mhm.
paper of some kind. So I was thinking about all those possibilities of what love letters can really be. And one of the resources we're going to have is about that, why love letters were lost and um, what we can
Mm.
do, right?
So we're going to get into the technology pros and cons, but we have that in our
Yeah,
resource, guys, because you did that resource for us. And we kind of had a conversation about like why people kind of stopped writing letters. And some of the obvious reasons were people got busy. Um, uh, the texting and emails were much more convenient and very fast.
yeah,
Capitalism. And then just I think we talked a little bit about a little bit of I think pride, some of the pride and stuff in terms of smut, people wanting to be proud about being smutty. I think because of gains and wins and sexual liberation movement, although not very um, not very multiracial, but getting there has been, has had its, I'm losing my words. It has had its way in giving us more, pride in the things that we do sexually for female women's body AFAB bodies and all of that, so it's changed a lot in the ways that we've expressed ourselves, but um I think that there are a lot of multitude of reasons why we've stopped writing. Also, we've stopped learning how to write in script. There's a lot of other reasons, right? Um, yeah,
Yeah.
I suspect we're not going to have paper anymore at one point or another. You know,
Generations, yeah. Yeah, I
probably.
think there is something about also access to, I'm thinking about, dating apps and how these days you can
Mm,
go online and have access to so many different types of people. And I think that has changed expression of, again, love to smut, and how we find people and how we interact with them. Like talking about love letters, writing, and the anticipation and the waiting and the kind
hmm.
of extended teasing process that you would go through. Now you can just kind of find someone, exchange some conversations with them very quickly, and in the span of half hour to an hour, you either get what you wanted or you don't and leave. And so they put that next to, I'm gonna write a letter, even though it doesn't take very long these days. Like letters are what, delivered 2-3 days later. But it's and honestly, some people on dating apps take even longer than that to write you back. So
Mm.
I mean, maybe you want to think about that as well. But yeah, I mean, it's kind of become like a lost practice, right? It's an inconvenient thing to do.
Now I'm gonna try now. We got all the time in the world. I'm gonna give it a shot. I'm gonna give it a shot.
The world has slowed down. There's no better time than right now.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I guess we're about, can jump into the second part of the session, which is smut, or digital smut specifically, because I think most smut is in digital form these days. And so yeah, let's talk about smut and what you like words and what they mean.
Smut, a noun. Pornographic or indecent talk, writing, etc. Something obscene or indecent. Verb, to make obscene. I love that it's to make obscene. Indecent. Why is it indecent? It's awesome.
And I see, it's funny. I had the same thought about the verb form of smut. It's like to smut something is to make it obscene. And I thought about how, like, smut is in a way the perversion of love, right? It's
Mm.
you have obscene love.
That's so funny.
So,
The perversion of love, or the perversion of love. That's kind of hot. The perversion of love.
only you would say that.
I want to perverse love.
But yeah, I mean, in a way, I think of now smut as a verb, like fuck as a verb, right? It's like,
Mm,
or queer as a verb. So to queer something,
right,
to
right.
fuck something, so fuck with something, and then I have to start using to smut something.
Will smut you.
Oh my gosh, this is going places.
Okay. All right. So
Yeah.
I think we kind of talked about this, like how are smut and love similar or different? I think they're the same. I think they're all balled up into one, some feelings teeter totter, something might feel much more intense than others. Some might be wrapped up in physical form, emotional form. I think it's all balled up. And I think when we try to say that it's not, that's where we get fucked up. I mean, it's all there. When we try to separate and say we are not these physical, sexual, let me take that back. I'll take that back because there are people that are asexual. So let me take that back. When we try to say that people who desire these things, right, um, can separate these things, then no, because it's like we want to do that evil. That's
Mhm.
I am a good person, therefore I only engage in these things. Um, we have desire is desire is very what is the word I'm looking for? It's a spectrum.
Fluid? Oh,
It's a
spectrum.
spectrum. It's fluid. It's fluid, and that and it's asexuality is within that spectrum. You know, like it's all a spectrum, and so to say that we only people can only exist right here, and that's the good people, it's bullshit. And so we all are a part of this thing, um, and it sucks when the people who get to explore these other parts become um, horrible, disgusting people.
Right. There is that
In a
hierarchy.
bad way, in a bad way, not the good way.
Right. We're talking from the perspective of how
Yes.
most people would look at it.
Yes.
So yeah, there is really that hierarchy of good versus bad desire. And then on the good side there's love, and then on the bad side there's smut.
Hmm.
And then even within those there's good smut and there's bad smut. There's you know I think people have opened up more to using smut and porn. I'm using porn as a form of smut that is maybe more um, explicit and maybe more visually accessible. But even with that openness, there's still a lot of stigma, and there's a lot of guilt, and there's a lot of complicated feelings around what kind of smut you're using. And the whole conversation about ethical porn, feminist porn, versus regular porn, which is um, assumed to just be, if you're viewing that, like, you got issues and you gotta do something about it. So the hierarchy is really interesting. And yeah, I think I was telling you, I'm not sure even about adding that value judgment of ethical feminist labels to our smut, because I find viewership of porn as an already complicated thing. It really brings up so many different feelings, from possibly pleasure and erotic feelings to pain to trauma to guilt,
Hmm.
right? Um, so to add another layer of like, am I being ethical right now or not? Not that we shouldn't. We should have that conversation,
Right.
right?
Yeah, and it's the when you told me this, I was like, it's the first time I've had someone say that, like this conversation when you brought it up, because and then I said, because I am have been in porn, and I have been in porn that is considered non-feminist porn and feminist porn, and I see the value in the categories in the feminist porn, and then when you brought that up, and I was like, huh, I can see the hierarchy in it as well. And I also see when um, in talking with people about and talking with people that have never considered viewing porn, have been afraid of porn and stuff, and have come across porn that now is considered feminist porn, and see themselves in the porn, and or have been are survivors of uh, abuse and stuff, now can watch porn because said porn is accessible, right?
Mhm.
So it's complicated, as you said before. It is complicated, and I want to dig deeper in there with you, because it is a complex thing. Because and then I also think about the ways in which we talk about the regular porn as how is harmful to particular groups of people. Where have we talked to these particular groups of people, or are we making assumptions?
Mhm.
Right. So it is complicated. Right. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's definitely a bigger conversation that one day hopefully we'll bring to you. But also there is that notion within, again, the cyber fucking context, is if you are bringing smut and porn into it,
Mm-hmm.
I feel like porn and smut is considered something private at best, right? It's a lot of within a lot of relationships, the most a partner can do is to just make peace with the fact that you jack off to watching porn every once in a while. And that's considered a very liberal view, a very progressive approach. So let's make a case for why. Why should people consider bringing porn and smut into their cyber fucking, I guess?
It's hot. I think it's pretty frigging amazingly hot, and it could be really good, but I would say it can be amazing if you come into it with an agreement right from the get. And the agreement would be, I'd love to do this or share this with you, with the agreement that we will delete this immediately, or that we will keep this, and whatever the agreement is, right? And I would say that if you decide to keep this, that in the back of your mind, you will have to understand that possibly there's a tiny little percent that maybe someone might see it. And you have to understand that that could be a possibility. Unless you delete it forever, there's always a possibility that someone will find it, and you just have to know that. So
So
and
you talk.
I know that you have some stuff that you're going to share about security and things like that. But I always say, I got things floating around right there, and I'm like, yeah, there's a possibility that that's going to pop up somewhere, but I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that. But if you're not, if you're absolutely not, so it's good to make those
Yeah.
decisions going in, making that it's good. Or if you're going to share something live, with the capacity to not let someone record something where you have the control, and then it's like, there it is, you're seeing it live, baby, now it's gone. No recording.
So I gotta say, yes, the security privacy issues come up again, right? Anytime we're dealing with cyber stuff. And you're talking specifically about making porn with someone,
Hmm.
or if you're doing a session with them where you
Right.
are, are nude or doing things. And the one thing is, you might want to consider there are screen recorders available. So I would say, even if you're doing something live, really you just want to maybe do this with someone we trust a lot, unless it's a non-issue for you that whatever images are recorded, because um, on the other side they could technically be using a screen recorder and record you live and
That's
still
true.
keep a copy of whatever you showed them. But also there are, assuming there's trust, I think it's good to negotiate stuff like, what happens if this relationship ends? And this could be any
Mm,
kind of relationship. It could be a casual thing, or it could be an involved group partnership. Who keeps this? Is it on my server? Is it on your server? Is it on a shared server? What kind of agreements do we have around, once the relationship ends, uh, do we each get to keep our own copies of this,
mm,
or we agree to delete it then? I think if you're concerned about privacy stuff, having those conversations and thinking about them um, can keep the anxieties away, hopefully. But at the end of the day, as Ignacio said, if you have concerns about your naked body being on the internet, sharing it over the internet is can never as safe as, it's never 100%. That's just the truth of it. But not to be fear mongering, I would also say with someone you trust a lot, um, there is no reason to think everything will go wrong, you know. But what about, my question is sharing porn? Like, let's say you're doing a session, a video session with someone. I know, like on Zoom, there's a capacity to share screens. How? how would you say you could share something that you either watch you like, or maybe it's something that you've watched before you both know you like? um, what could that do? How can that add?
Yeah, that's awesome because I do that all the time. So I watch a good porn that I love, and then I send it to the person and say, watch this shit because it's hot. And then I want you to tell me how it was when you watched it because I want to know how you touched yourself and what part you came at when you watched it. So it's awesome. They can masturbate to it alone and then tell me about it later, or we can share a screen together and masturbate together while watching it, or they can masturbate and I can watch them enjoy it, or they can watch me. I mean, the possibilities are endless. It's beautiful. I mean, it's just so many things you can do. Yeah.
Yeah, and I was thinking you could make porn of masturbating to watching shared porn.
Oh yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
that's just, again, depending on what you're into, really possibilities are endless.
Yeah.
One thing, like we talked about around sharing porn in general, whether you send it ahead of time or watch together, I think it can be a very vulnerable thing if you aren't still on the same page exactly around your sexual desires or the type of porn you watch, because they can be different. Like,
Yes.
you could watch a certain type of porn, but really that's not the kind of thing you want to do with a
Mm-hmm.
partner. It's something that can get you really hot and in the mood.
Right.
But so there's just a lot of nuance in the kind of porn we watch, why we watch it, what do we get out of it, and sharing that with someone else can be a really vulnerable moment. Not
Yes.
to mention that for a lot of people, porn can bring up insecurities, it can feel intimidating, and without clear communication, they might go, oh, is that the kind of thing they want me to do?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, so, yes, I feel like, again, depending on what kind of relationship you have with someone, clarifying all of those things can be really helpful.
Yeah. Yeah. It's true. That totally reminds me of the first time I had sex with a girl when I was a girl. I put on a porn. I actually put a porn on, and the porn was a heterosexual porn, and then it had a girl on girl action scene, and we were drinking 40s, hanging out, and the girl on girl scene came on, and she said, "Oh, that is so disgusting," and then I said, "Oh, I don't think it's disgusting. I think, something I want to try before I die." And she said, "Really?" And I said, "Yeah." And she said, "Oh." And I was like, "Yeah, you want to try it with me?" And that's how I had sex with the first girl. Yes, because I had to put it on because I was scared to ask her and I needed to see her reaction. And when she said ill, I was like, God damn. And then I was like, fuck it, I'm just gonna go for it. I was like, well, I think it's hot. And she was like, oh, yeah, me too. I think it's hot too. Yeah, it's okay.
That's the most amazing way to seduce, I gotta say.
I had sex that night for the first time with a woman.
Well, that reminds me, in my lesbian days, lesbian porn was the last thing on my list of porn to watch. And I've been watching porn for a long time and a lot of different kinds. And it was the last thing on my list to watch. And and again, the difference between what porn we're into and what we
Hmm.
like to do in real life. And again, I was a militant lesbian. I was like, I do not understand anything else. I can't even relate to other types of desire. Yet, lesbian porn, and I explored everything from your mainstream fake kind of lesbian porn to like your Crash Pad series, kind of proper, well done lesbian porn.
Yes,
So it was
proper.
the hierarchy
Yeah.
of that hierarchy. Um, yeah, it was really interesting how different that was,
Yeah. Yeah, they
and
have the categories is like lesbian porn, but then there's also girl on girl porn. That's not actually lesbian porn. It's heterosexual made porn for, it's two heterosexual women, so not really the
exactly,
best
yeah.
representation. Yeah, but I mostly watch, porn, the porn I watch is not porn that people think I would watch. Yeah. I watch some other shit. I watch some shit, So nobody. It's like when I say this is what I watch, like what? That's what you watch? I'm like, that's what I watch. I watch some shit. Hmm.
And I get the vulnerability of sharing that. It wasn't until I started sharing the kind of porn I watch and I'm actually into that I realized so many other people I would never thought would watch that kind of thing or fantasize about it also do
Yeah.
it. And that's how complicated that is, right? And just to have that language of sharing with a partner, like, hey, that's the kind of porn I watch. That doesn't mean I want you to do it.
And like spill the tea. Everybody's like tell.
It's kind of in a way it's become a filter. It's like if you can't make peace with the kind of porn I watch, we probably aren't gonna last very long.
That's true.
So I've
It
gone
is
from all the
true.
way to like hiding it, a secret thing, having a lot of shame and guilt around, like, oh my god, I'm watching the kind of porn that my peers would consider unethical and not feminist, and
Right.
God
Right.
knows if the actresses and the actors or the setting everything was perfect or not.
Right.
To now, here's who I am, here's what I watch, and here is how that's different from my desire. What do
Yes.
you say?
Exactly. Here I am. I'm a whore. Take me as I
Oh man,
am.
those are your words.
These are my words. These are my words. These are my words. I am a dirty, filthy whore, and this is who I am. Accept me.
Oh goodness.
Accept me. I am proud of that. This is true. This is very true. And this is a proud thing. I mean, and I use those words really because those are the words that people use against in a very negative way, right? And I am a filthy, disgusting, dirty whore. And the ways that I fantasize, the porn that I like to use, the ways in which I have sex, and the ways in which people categorize people like me. Yeah, that's who I am.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's that reclaiming of the whole
Yeah.
slughood, the being a whore, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, absolutely. One of the things for the longest time, one of the things that I would often think about when watching porn, especially for porn actresses, is we I feel like porn actresses are specifically actresses, right, are viewed as like another type of sexual victim, and they are considered as like there's always that question of, well, what happened to this person who is now doing
Mm-hmm.
porn, right, or
Mm-hmm.
is allowing these things to happen to her body. So there's always that kind of thought that is lingering, I feel like. And at some point, what also became a thought for me was the liberation, potential liberation. Of course, I'm making projections. Every porn actress is a different story and path, but
Right.
the liberation of being able to just be there with your body
Mm-hmm.
front of the cameras, doing things you're not supposed to be doing
Right.
things not make your parents proud of you, and not giving a fuck.
I mean, that's what it was like. That was for me. That was liberation for me. That was
Exactly.
a part of my healing for my trauma. I mean, doing that's not everybody's story, that's for sure. But for me, that was healing. That was like going from not being able to, express your own sexual body to being able to say, yeah, look at me. I can do this. So yeah, totally.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, let's see. All right, let's see if you have questions. Take some of those. Uh,
We have any?
we have some logistical questions, which I will get back to folks about
Okay.
here. Um, yeah, I'll get back to you all who send me logistical stuff. Let's see. All right. I'm not sure if folks are sending the questions yet. So if you have any questions, there's a lot of really sweet comments. It might be a hard topic to ask about. I feel like love letters is a novel thing for a lot of people these days.
Oh, I
And
see. It says tips on sexy words and how to use them in a letter.
oh,
Sexy words. Okay. What's this? Um, can you read that?
yeah, tips on sexy words and how to use them in a letter.
No, the other one.
Oh, I see. Oh, subreddit. Yes, actually, thank you for that. That's one of the places I recommend for erotic literature in the resource package is Reddit. There's a lot of, if you are the type of person who likes user, like not professional content, Reddit offers a lot of wonderful user-based smut for your consumption. There's a lot of wonderful subreddits for all types of desires and fantasies and dirty things. So thanks for that. But did you want to talk? Do you have recommendations for words and?
Tips on sexy words. I look, it's so funny. This is really funny because I am a poet, right? And then when but I'm a poet, don't you know it? And but when I write in when I write like that, I don't write, I write in a very different way.
Hmm.
I write very aggressively. Again, I am a dirty, filthy whore. I write in a different way. I'm sorry.
Do you leave anything for the imagination?
You're gonna have to ask other people about that, I guess. They seem to like it, I guess. They seem to like it.
Yeah, I mean, I think using words, I think in general, both for love letters and also if you're like sexting, again, depends how you want to sext. I feel like sexting isn't as, again, dignified as love letters. um, I think it really depends on the style. Yeah, I'm trying to think. Uh, use a thesaurus. It's a great opportunity to work on, because when I think about love letters, I'm like, if you're going there, let's go all out and let's get all retro and let's use some words that are my style. My style would be let's use some words that are a little heavier.
Mm.
Um, and I wonder how you could combine that. That doesn't have to be like vanilla. That doesn't have to be, um, I don't know, juiceless.
Juiceless.
Make up words.
Oh, writing with fountain pens. That's awesome. That's so sexy. Fountain pens.
Yeah, and then there was a question about like we were talking about thinking about the like what kind of letters it would be, right? Whether it's something you send one time um to something you could create with someone else in a back and forth kind of journey.
Say that again. That was a question or the comment?
Oh, that was a comment. So if
Oh, okay.
yeah, let's I see there's a question from someone else here.
Okay. Tips for getting comfortable with your own desires.
There's one about email instructions for a sub.
Oh, is it a
Yeah, it's like, have you experimented with sending email instructions for a sub?
yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Yes, live like that. Yes. Through video apps and through emails, sending lots of instructions over that medium to a sub. Yeah, to give instructions on what to do or instructions on specific sexual things. Yes, I've had sexual submissives. So they've performed sexual duties for me. But yes.
They're asking how would you enforce protocols?
Oh, so one of the things that I had were specific positions that I've had all my submissive master. So I had 10 positions that they would master. And so these positions would be specific positions that had them in their body, accessible to me when they were in my physical presence. But obviously, in quarantine, if they were in video and I would ask them to get in these positions, I would see their bodies. They would open up to me, or I can see, their bodies in certain positions. So I could say, for instance, I want you in position 4, and I want you to have a butt plug in your ass. So, and take a picture and send it to me. I can say that. I want you in position 5, and I want you to stay there for 10 minutes, record yourself doing that,
Mhm.
you know, and stay there for 10 minutes. I want to see a 10-minute recording. I want to see you, recite something while you're on video, masturbating, in this position. Boom.
Mhm.
I want that by 3 o'clock today. You
And
know,
you always need the receipts.
yeah. And you definitely want specific time frames and things like that. So those are just some ideas. You know.
Yeah. Yeah, I think what really works well with that kind of lagging communication, whether you're using email, letters, or texting, kind of what's the good term? Asynchronous communication
What was
is
that?
asynchronous, so it's not sync, it's out of sync
Oh,
communication.
thank you.
So it would be letter writing, sending emails, or even texting. Assuming you're not, both there for texting, is that for power play? I think it creates that kind of, extra tension and extra teasing and if you're giving instructions of like what I'm expecting you to do by when, and please be specific because it really matters, right? As someone on the
Yes.
other side of it, I'm like, I really need to know exactly what is expected of me. Please
Yeah.
be specific.
This is
um
true. This is very true because it's like, yes, and I've been on both sides. I am a dominant and I have been a submissive. And so, as a dominant, it's true. You got to be very clear because if you're not going to get what you want. And you can make the person very anxious because they want to do it right. They don't want to fuck it up. So, you have to really think it through as to what you want them to do exactly.
yeah, yeah. um all right. See,
There was the one about desire. I want to go back to
tips for getting comfortable with your own desire.
yes, yes. That's a good one because oftentimes we don't know what our desires are because that's we don't talk about that. I think the first step is I often say doing an inventory of our past relationships is always a good start, because when we start having relationships or even friendships, when I say relationships, it could be romantic relationships and it could be friendships, any kind of relationship. Take an inventory because when we first start our relationships, we have no freaking idea. We're just going by what we see. We have no idea what we desire because we're just, guessing. We're falling off a cliff and guessing. And so we're going along and we're just building up information. So now we're just taking a trip back and we're going to think about different relationships we've been in and think about what was fucking awesome about them. Like, think about what made you feel so good in your body and in your heart. What was good about either the sex or the friendship or the communication or whatever. Think about all the good shit. Fuck the bad right now. Just thinking about the desire part. Like, think about that and pull it out of all of them. See if there's a common theme. See if there's something that strikes you and within all of those. And then start from there. That's what I like to do. Start from there.
Yeah.
Think about what that brings out in you what you like to do with them, what you want to do to them, and what you want them to do to you, and start experimenting, because that's the only way we start figuring out what we want to do, what we desire. Because sometimes we do things and decide, holy shit, that was amazing, I want to do that again. And then other times we're like, that shit sucked, I never want to do that again ever. And so, but the only way we could have learned that was because we tried it, and said, okay, no good, don't like it, and
Yeah.
then move it along. And it's like, check, okay. But it's good when we're doing it intentionally, because we get to say we've created the parameters that were at least safer for us to decide whether we liked it or not, and then move on. So I think that's always the first step for me. I'm always thinking back,
Mhm.
and taking inventory about stuff.
Yeah, and also desire, like you were saying, is fluid. Not
Yeah.
only between among different people, but also for ourselves and throughout our lives. It can shift so much, and also how desire shows up in relation to who we are when we are just by ourselves,
Yes.
not
Yes.
thinking about any other partner or what we would do with them, and then how that changes with different partners.
Yeah.
So I really like what you say about you kind of have to experiment a little bit, right? It's kind of like you want to try to see what kind of foods you like.
Yeah.
There's some foods that the thought of it, the smell of it is disgusting to you, and you're like, I'm never gonna try that. All good, but you will never find new kinds of food that you really like if you never try anything outside of
Yeah.
what you want to try, right?
Mm-hmm.
And sharing it with others, I know for me was a big part of making solidifying that it's okay for me to have some kind of desires, right? um, like like for example, rape fantasies is a
Yeah.
it's I don't want to say it's a desire, it's a fantasy.
Mm-hmm.
A very common fantasy, which I did not know how common
Right.
it was until finally I allowed myself to express that. And then so many people feel comfortable on the other side and like, yeah, that's also a fantasy I sometimes entertain. So
Mm-hmm.
it's like in a similar way, I feel like finding other people who like what you like can
Right.
allow the desire to actually solidify.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's true. It's like this goes back to also the desire question too. I'm a sex educator and I've been doing this thing for a long time, and I still learn what my desires are all the time, and I am still learning desire points, like I keep saying, as my chosen family member, Dr. Jamie Grant, who does desire mapping, talks about in her book Good Sex. It's I learned something even more about myself, this year. Um, and it's very clear. And it's like you talked about, like, rape fantasies and stuff. And that's my jam. Like, that is the thing. Like, it's for me, my my lexicon of, sexual play, and, is very much around role play and um, sexual fantasy around rape play and age play.
Mhm,
That's my jam. That's where
mhm,
that's where I kind of live, and it's all aggressive and all that stuff. And it's interesting because it was so taboo and so, like, you can't do that because of the brokenness, and you're a survivor and you can't. And it's just like, no, now it's not even that anymore. It's just like, no, there I am. This is my healing practice. This is who I am. I am an intentional being. I am not hurting anyone. This is actually healing my ass. This is good for me. So I'm
mhm.
doing this, and this is
Yeah.
okay. And this totally helps me. And so this work, this is like so fucking intense and beautiful. And I totally lost my thought. I totally lost my thought. What was I talking about, Redby? Bring it
You were
back for
talking.
me.
You were talking about how rape play was something so healing for you as a survivor who wasn't
Yes.
supposed to find it healing.
Yes. No, I lost my thought. Damn it. It was so good.
Someone is asking if you can talk more about rape fantasy as a healing process.
Yes. Probably I'll remember as I continue talking.
Yeah,
Shit,
yeah.
this is middle age. God damn it. Okay.
Come back.
For me, it's been a healing thing because it's like uh, because I've had to dig into it. Like for me, not for everyone. Definitely not for everyone. I've
Mhm.
had therapy and I've had a lot of other things supporting me. Um, and I'm sorry, we got a couple of more minutes already.
Yeah.
Um, and this has helped me to rewrite my own story, basically, with the support of other people, with a great and safe container. I have been able to rewrite different things of my trauma. So that's in a nutshell. I'm going to say it that way because we're going to dig into that a little bit more with power play and even fantasy stuff that we're going to talk about in the next round.
Mhm.
I do want to kind of wrap it up because one of our interpreters is going to be leaving soon, and we want to talk about the next
Mhm.
topic we're going to bring to y'all and say thank you to everybody. We got into some good shit this time. Um, so, Red V, take
Yeah. If yeah, so join us for our next session. It's in anonymity, digital role play, and fantasy, and we're going to talk about how you can explore those realms um, of role play and fantasy, but also how anonymous connections online can potentially be a way of exploring some aspects of your sexuality that, for whatever reason, you don't have a partner to explore with, or you don't have a willing partner to explore with. And we also will be talking about, as Ignacio said, more kink and virtual power play stuff. So please join us for future sessions, and please also continue donating so that we can cover our costs of bringing these webinars to you. And our resource package will have a lot of links, a lot of suggestions for audio and video material that you can keep yourselves busy with during these shelter in place times. And yeah, and finally, want to thank everybody who was able to join us live today and everybody who will be watching this video later, and our subscribers, our fans, and of course, our wonderful interpreters who have done
yes,
such a
yes.
fantastic job today.
Yes, thank you so much. And I'm looking forward to the next conversation too because role play is my jam. That's the thing. I can't wait to talk about that. And the last one too. I mean, that's all my jam. I love that shit.
It's gonna
So
get very exciting from here on. This was like groundwork. I'm looking
yes,
forward to launching.
yes, I'm very excited for the rest of the conversations. And if people definitely have like pre-questions or stuff that they really want to talk about, please let us know ahead of time. And if there's something that we missed or if there's a resource that you wanted to add, please let us know. We'll add it to the resource list. And if my brain remembers the thing that I was going to say, I will say it later because I know I was going to say something real good, then I lost it. I don't remember. But
It'll
that's all
come
right.
back.
It'll come back.
We'll have many more conversations like this. All right. Well, you all
Yes.
have a wonderful Sunday, and
Is
we'll see
Felice
you.
still there to say goodbye? Or has she
Oh,
signed off already?
not sure.
All
Maybe
right.
not.
Maybe she signed off already.
Oh no.
Oh, there you go. All right. Bye. We wanted to make sure you
All
say
right.
bye. All right. Bye,
Bye.
everyone. Thank you so much for all your support. See you next
Thank
time.